Hello, I'm Jack Rickard with EVTV. This is my compadre and consigliere, El Breno Noto.
Hey, good to see you, amigo.
What are we going to do today, Brain?
Well, what we always do is Friday is take over the world.
Friday
Or
is the
or
day
just
where we
survive.
take over the world.
Or just make it. Some days are better than others.
Some days are better than others. Well, we've had a good week.
We did.
Weather's kind of been fighting us. But,
Yeah, just been a little chilly and
yeah, it's
a little,
getting to be winter.
yeah, did a little stuff in the rain, but
What have you heard from the land of electric vehicles?
Well, let's see. Well, something interesting. I guess if you're going to be in D.C., it looks like the Smithsonian is going to have 100 years of electric car history out there.
Really?
Yeah, they've got a 1904 Columbia runabout, 1913 Model T touring car. They've got they got an EV1. What else? They've got just some stuff. They've got some chargers and things like that. And it just might be interesting if you're out in D.C. It's free.
Well, I'd like to go.
Part of it being an American citizen.
100 years of electric car history,
Yeah,
that'd be fascinating.
and it sounds like through January, I think. I just want to give you the right date. Yeah, through January.
Huh.
So that should be, that should be interesting if you happen to be in D.C. Nissan has come out and has decided that a long-range EV is completely unnecessary.
Really?
Yeah, they've just figured that that this 100 miles is all you need. And in fact, that it's twice as much as what anyone needs. And that people are using their gasoline-powered cars as a secondary vehicle, and they're at least these with Leaf owners, becomes their primary vehicle, which is kind of what we've been talking about for
several years.
Several years. I mean, we just made it up. Now they've got the data, and look what happened.
We kind of had the data too.
Yeah, we did. We've been driving it for a long
cars.
time. Yeah, we had cars. Yeah.
Now they do too.
Yep.
And I agree with their curves. Actually, I think we're going to see, not in our lifetimes, but within 5, 6, 7 years, 1,000-mile range car.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. It's
electric vehicle.
Yeah.
With no hybrid, no gasoline engine at all. I happen to know there's quite a bit of battery science laying around unfunded.
Right, because who are they going to sell it to? Yeah.
And if a market emerged for it,
you guys are a market.
Then I think it'll go.
Yeah.
We're starting to get a little oxygen in this market, so I think you'll see a lot of things. But as I've said, it will not have the impact going from 100 to 1,000 that we had going from 20 to 100.
To 100, that's a big, yeah.
That's the threshold of viability.
Right.
And, I got to tell you, Brian, if we're not testing cars, I'm charging every third or fourth day.
Right.
On the little ones that get good efficiency, that Ford Edge has to be charged every night. That's a mess.
Yeah, it's a heavy vehicle. Yeah.
It's a heavy vehicle.
Yeah.
And so I think you'll find a 5,000 or 6,000 pound car you have to charge
With an automatic and a 5,000-6,000 pound car.
But these proper electric cars, anything pretty aerodynamic and a little bit lightweight.
A little bit lighter, yeah.
I'm charging every third or fourth day.
Yeah. Yeah, not bad.
They're spending $115 million of federal money to put in level 2 charge stations in public places in 18 cities. It's crazy. It's madness.
Yeah, you just charge at home.
You charge at home. I can see an application for charging at your employers.
Yeah, where you're going to be there for a while. Yeah,
right.
You're going to be hanging out 8 hours a day, but everybody got mad at Costco for pulling their chargers out. But who's going to be in Costco for 6 or 8 hours? Where it's going to make any difference under
the
level
people that
1 or
work at
level
Costco.
2? Yeah, just the people that work at Costco. And they had them all over the parking lots. Yeah, they had made a major commitment for their customers.
What else you got?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, I've got another one here. This is the claims to be the safest electric vehicle in the world, and maybe we can show them a picture of it. But it's by a company Humanix in Japan, in cooperation with Hiroshima University, and they have put the airbags on the outside of this 3-seat vehicle. So I don't know, maybe other people bounce off you, their car can't penetrate your safety field, I don't know.
Looks like the pillow car.
It does, like it's almost like the Michelin car, the Pillsbury Doughboy car. Yeah, yeah. So maybe we can show a little picture of the Humanix car. And the last one is, and we had kind of talked about these guys before, is Polaris. They're out in Minnesota, and I don't know, maybe a year ago or so, they had bought a GEM from Chrysler. Well, they had just made a investment. There was a $28 million round that Polaris got significantly involved in to purchase Bramo, the electric motorcycle manufacturer out in Oregon.
Huh, so did they purchase them or
They
invest in them,
they invested, yeah, I don't know exactly the amount, but apparently they did 28 million of Series B funding that was led by Polaris and Alpine Energy, which was in there already. So
Well, that sounds pretty serious that the Bramo motorcycle's going to be a product.
I think that they're looking at that. I mean, that market, I think the electric motorcycle market's what they're really looking at. And I think some of the technology that Bramo has, they're fairly high-tech vehicles. Those motorcycles are actually pretty cool.
Okay.
And that's News from Brain. That may be our new segment, News from Brain.
Got a couple of things. Tesla, whose stock is climbing back up there.
Okay.
They're at 28.75 this morning. They have announced a new version of the Roadster for 2014. You recall the original Roadster was really a Lotus Elise.
Right.
They hate it when I can
Tell them that they're
tell them
converters
that
like
they're
us.
a conversion shop, like most of our viewers. But they really did do the Roadster
Right.
from the Lotus Elise. I would, I saw a discussion on this week. I would rate it as the most successful electric car, the most gorgeous electric car ever built. But it's a Lotus Elise.
Right.
That they converted to electric drive, made some changes to the Elise, but basically converted it to electric drive, and it's been a success.
Yeah, it's a great car.
They had originally contracted with Lotus for 2,400. I think they've extended that 200, but there's nothing to do after that. Lotus is retooling their
They're
line.
redoing their line, yeah.
And so there's no more Lotus Elises.
Right.
And so that's ended. They're going to introduce in 2014 an updated version of the Roadster based on a shortened Model S chassis.
Oh, okay.
With the newer batteries and the
Okay.
integrated, rear end motor and controller thing.
Okay.
And should be a better Roadster than the Roadster.
Uh-huh. Oh, how cool. So 2014, huh? Okay.
China's a fascinating place. Beijing has gotten to where they have such a problem. Of course, they have a pollution problem too, but they have a terrific problem with traffic.
Oh, I could imagine. Wow.
Well, they've started a lottery to register a car in Beijing. And I didn't realize how far this had gone. I thought it was like, well, if you don't get it this lottery, they have another
You
one
may
in
get it
6
next time,
months,
yeah.
and it's half the people get it on each half of the year or something. It's like 1 in 23 applicants get a registration each lottery.
Really?
Yeah. You
man.
can't have a car of any kind
So like a 4%.
in Beijing
Oh, man.
unless you win a registration in this lottery.
Oh, yeah, oh, man. We have to bring it with you to get the car?
I guess once you get it, then you have it.
You've got a slot to register your car if
Yeah.
you buy one. Oh, man.
But without it, you don't have a car. You can't take it on the public roads
Oh, man.
in Beijing. They're going to waive that registration requirement. In other words, you get registered automatically if it's an electric car.
Oh, really?
And BYD,
That's
the
what-
company that Warren Buffett has invested in,
Right.
and then I characterize these guys are just like the Terminator. They've got 10,000 engineers in harness in this conclave. That,
Right, it's locked behind a wall.
They dominate the battery industry in cell phone batteries. They've taken the Japanese batteries and duplicated them, and now sell them for cheap. And most of the hundreds of millions of cell phones in the world use the BYD
Use the
battery.
BYD battery, yeah.
Well, they're introducing the BYD E6, which, you know, they've been talking about
Yeah.
for several years. They didn't.
Isn't that like this week or something?
Yeah.
Or- yeah.
They didn't introduce it in the U.S. yet, but they are introducing it in China.
Yeah, okay,
And
wow.
it's apparently working hand in hand with this Beijing registration.
Registration, okay.
So that
Wow.
it's an interesting area of what's going on
Yeah,
there.
absolutely.
Do I advocate that for us? No. Centralized planning of economies has a problem, and that's, you number one, have to be able to keep track of what 1.3 billion people
What do
want
they
to
want?
do,
That's right.
and you have to be able to predict the future.
Yeah.
And that's why a free market forces capitalistic economy tends to be more durable, because every week some fail,
Right.
and every week some win.
Something come in, yeah, or new ones, yeah.
No one ever talked about what would happen if General Motors gone bankrupt. All the companies that would have gotten all that equipment, land, and plants and so forth on 10 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, like,
So you don't talk about what happens with the fallen, rotten vegetation, but it renews the forest.
that's right, yeah, yeah.
And so I'm not an advocate of central planning, but it's interesting to watch
Right, see
that
what
in
happens.
operation.
Yep.
The Cobra, the gift that just keeps on giving.
We can't like start shaking it off our hands. We can't get rid of it.
Recall with the Spider, we had developed an interesting little test. We called the Soapbox Derby.
Yes, we did, right out here.
Well, it put me in mind we were missing a stroke. I did some reading about coast down tests and how to do them. And basically we incorporated the concept of running a car up to 75 mile an hour, taking our foot off the accelerator, and putting the gear shift in neutral,
In neutral, yeah.
and calling out a time mark when it crossed through 70 miles per hour, and noting that as time 0. As it descends through 60, we call out a second time mark and note that as the 60 time. And as it gets through 50, the 50 time, and so on down until it rolls to a stop.
Yes. Yep.
And
Lead stop.
I'm not trying to calculate aerodynamic drag or a coefficient of rolling resistance here. I'm going to use the numbers on their own merit.
Yeah, just what was longer or shorter.
Right,
Yeah.
what's longer and shorter. If
Yeah.
it rolled longer, that would be better,
That would be
right?
better, yeah.
Number one, it would be further. But it simply took longer to go from 70 to 0, and that would be a further distance,
Right.
much like our soapbox derby.
Right, exactly.
Brian and Rod Holzhauser, who's kind of hanging out in the shop trying to learn to do stuff, have performed this test admirably with the Michelin energy savers on.
Yes. 10. Zero. Okay.
And then we swapped out the tires. What are our two? What are the Michelin Energy Savers? What's the spec there?
So the Michelin Energy Savers are a 195 6515, so fairly standard. I think that's probably the smallest tire that they make in the low rolling resistance tire. Our diameter is 25 inches. Our rollout, which would be the circumference basically, is 78.5. The tread width is 7.7 inches, and the sidewall height is 5 inches.
Okay. And what did they call the tire that came on the Cobra?
That was a Dean Tire and Rubber Company Stinger Radial GTS.
Stinger Radial GTS.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what were their sizes?
And we had two different sizes because they were staggered between the front and the rear. So on the front, we had a 235 6015. That diameter of the tire, the total height is 26.2 inches. The rollout circumference 82.3. Tread width was 9.3. Yeah, and the sidewall height was 5.6 inches. So a softer tire with more rubber on the road. In the rear, a 295 5015. So a fairly significant tire, 26.5 inch diameter, circumference of 83.6 inches, tread width, it's a whopper, 11.6 inches, and a 5.8 inch sidewall height.
That's a foot of rubber and back.
Yes, foot of rubber and back, exactly.
Well, they look great,
They're nice looking tires.
and the car feels good with them.
Yeah, it's more, I mean, it feels more stable, and it where you put it in a corner, it tends to point a little bit better. It's, I mean, that's the Cobra tire that people
We
like.
don't care about tire diameter because we're using a GPS speedometer, right?
Right, so all of the numbers that we generated were not, we didn't have to do any formula to calculate the error in the speedometers because we use a GPS speedometer as speed at.
I'm going to put this up on the screen. We've done a little Excel graph of the results. Your total time from 70 to 0 with the Michelins, what do you have?
2.5 minutes, 152.93 seconds on average.
So pretty close to 153 seconds. And with the Stinger radials?
121.33 seconds, so about 2 minutes of rolling, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a 31-second difference.
It is, yeah.
In the total roll.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, when I look at this chart, this all makes sense. At the higher speeds, where aerodynamic drag is most of our component, going from 70 to 60, the Michelins were 7.5 seconds, and the Stinger radials were 7 seconds.
Yeah.
Half second.
Yeah, we were
difference.
rolling, at that point we were rolling pretty hard. It's almost like you're still under power.
From 70 to 50, you get a little bit more difference, about 2 seconds here, from 15.5 to 17.5. To 40 miles an hour, now we're up to 3.5 seconds difference maybe. But as we get down to 30,
Yeah, it really starts to come into play, doesn't it? Yeah.
we're 7 seconds difference to 30 miles an hour, and 11 seconds to 20,
At 20.
and 20 seconds
20 seconds at 10
at 10, and 30 seconds to 0.
to 0. Yeah.
And so those big And both sets of tires were pumped to 45.
Both
all the way
were
around.
both
We
were
checked all four of them, they were
Yep,
45.
both sets were 45. Yes.
So that's a pretty close. That's a pretty telling curve. I like this curve. So if we made changes in the car, either way, we can tell pretty much just by looking at the curve itself whether it's more aerodynamic or more
Rolling resistance.
rolling
resistance. Yes.
and just what effect it had. We could like change the tire pressure to 35 and map that right to this curve.
Right to the curve to start adding different variables.
We've been doing, in between weather bouts and rain,
Yes. It's been crazy this week.
some actual range testing at various static speeds,
Yes.
40, 50, and 60. Let's take a look and see what we've got there.
This episode of EVTV is brought to you by the Winston Battery Company Limited, makers of high-capacity lithium yttrium rare earth cells, including the popular 160 amp-hour model featuring cycle lives in excess of 5,000 cycles when discharged to 70%, the longest useful working life of any available battery of any chemistry. A leading battery technology scientist, inventor, and entrepreneur since 1995, Mr. Winston Chung envisions a new world of clean electric power for the dawn of a new era of electric vehicles. For your next electric vehicle design project, contact Winston Battery Limited. Energy for a bright future.
We've shown you the coast down test, the difference between the Michelin Energy Savers and the stock tires we got on the car. Each of them pumped to precisely 45 pounds per square inch. This, my board is a little bit of a mess. We have done different tests at different times and under different conditions and almost on purpose. It's tough to do all the 40 through 70 at any one time because of the time it takes and the battery it takes, and our weather hasn't been very good. But we'll go through what we can. We had shown our 40, 50, 60, and 70 before in blue. We did a subsequent test with the hood on and found some dramatic improvements. One of them was, and they're shown in black. We did not do the 70, but at 60 miles per hour, we dropped from 43 to 40.3 amp hours for the 22.65 mile lap. That's from 1.9 to 1.78, and our energy is 408 watt hours, dropped to 383. And so our range went up from 101 to 108, and our safe range from 81 to 86. This was repeated at 50 miles an hour. Our 38 in blue dropped to 33 with the hood on. And our 1.68 dropped to 1.46 then. Our energy usage from 361 watt hours to 314. This is a substantial gain. And so our range, a max range, goes from 115 to 132 miles. At some more like it. And our safe range gets up to 105 miles at 80%. At 40 miles per hour, these are our numbers. We didn't have a 40 with the hood off, but with the hood on, we're getting 18.7 amp hours, 1.27 amp hours per mile. That's 273 watt hours per mile, or a maximum range of 152 miles, that's more better, and a safe range of 121 miles. This was done by putting the hood on. And that is our the black numbers. This week, we pulled our Michelin Energy Saver all-season tires and wheels entirely and put back on the stock tire and wheels we received from B&B Manufacturing. They're wider, they're heavier. I believe we saved 48 pounds on the car by going to the weld wheels and the Michelin Energy Savers. But they also, as we saw from the coast down test, have a considerably different rolling resistance. I would say not a difference in aerodynamics. We didn't get a 60 mile per hour test with the new tires yet. I just flat ran out of battery. Brian did the coast down in the 70 mile per hour, and I did a 50 and a 40. And those numbers are shown in red, and they're kind of bad news. The 70, he did a 15.7 mile lap in 46.9 amp hours, and that's 2.98 amp hours per mile, up from 2.44, and a whopping 642 watt hours per mile of energy required, reducing our maximum range at 70 miles an hour to 64 miles, and our safe range almost down in lead acid territory at 52 miles. Again, we had no stock tire test at 60. At 50, we did the same 22.65 mile lap, and a curious thing happened. We got to 37.9 amp hours, which is almost identical to the 38 we had with the hood off. So we're back at 1.67 amp hours per mile, 360 watt hours per mile, and that's a 115 mile range again and 92 safe. So what we gained by putting the hood on, we lost by going to the old tires. At 40, this gets to be pretty egregious. And that's down in range where it's mostly rolling resistance instead of aerodynamics. We went from 18.7 amp hours to 23 to do a 14.7 mile lap up in the 45 mile an hour road I use there. That's 1.55 amp hours per mile instead of 127. 333 watt hours per mile instead of 273, and it gives us a range of 124 instead of 152. That's a 28 mile range difference at 40 miles an hour, which, and I like 40 because driving around town, that's probably what you're going to hit is 35 and 40 miles an hour. Acceleration being another factor, and of weight, but this is a good speed for me. But it's a huge difference. Our 80% range drops from 121 to 99. And so the Michelin Energy Saver low rolling resistance tires make a huge difference in range. I would say that there's a couple of complicating factors there. We're using a narrower tire, same diameter but narrower, and the narrower your footprint, the less rolling resistance you're going to have anyway. And there is a 48-pound difference, which shouldn't make much difference in our range at steady state speeds, a very minor contribution. But it is a narrower tire. You can get better rolling resistance just by going to a narrower tire than the one you're using. But in this case, comparing them to the wide stock tires that are kind of de rigueur with Cobra people, and frankly look better on the car and feel better. The car is a much nicer ride, even pumped up to 45 PSI. It feels better. It stands better on those wide tires than on the narrower Michelins. But we're not close. It's not worth the price. This is 60 watt hours per mile difference at 40 miles an hour. This is 46 watt hours per mile difference at 50. And it's 118 watt hours per mile difference at 70 miles an hour. And so you can see that there is apparently some aerodynamic component there as well. And our range truly gets to be a mess. At 70 miles an hour on a freeway with those wide tires, this car is not anything I would want. I can probably live with 79, 63. I'm not happy about it, but I could live with it. But I wouldn't have to. We'll be a little better than that anyway. Recall we didn't do a 70 mile test with the well, we did with the Michelin Energy Savers, and we did with the hood on. No, we didn't with the hood on. That's the difference. So we'll do better than this blue just by having the hood on. But we do much worse with the hood on and the stock tires. And so that's with me in the car. We're at 3,236 pounds, if that makes any difference to you. And again, we're at about a 43% weight distribution. What does the front hood do? Well, it decreases drag. There may be, this is all typing myself smart, simply theory, but it is a long sloping hood. It could have some downforce effect on the front tires, ameliorating this imbalance of weight. That may have been a contributing factor. But you can see the difference in the coast down test, and now this is the real driving on the road test of range and energy consumption. The tires are a big deal. I kind of knew they would be from the beginning of this project. Everybody wanted the fat tires. You can have them, but there's the price you pay.
Well, all of that shows there too, on the whiteboard.
It's quite consistent.
It's all consistent.
My whiteboard has gotten to be almost incomprehensible.
Yeah, we keep adding stuff to
different
it.
colors and different things added to it. I should have drawn that out different, but I kind of got used to looking at it that way.
Yeah,
And,
yep. It did make sense to us. Hope it made sense to you.
That's the ugly sausage making process we go through around
Putting
here.
the hood on made a big difference, and then we could eliminate all of that aerodynamic difference with the tires.
Yes.
Yeah, you know,
You can have either one, but actually you can have both.
you can have both. Yeah.
I'm going to tell Paul that he can have it either way he wants.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Went to just do a routine check on the Mini Cooper this week.
Yes.
What'd you find?
That little Mini Cooper bit me a couple of times, and I drug you over, and it bit you too. and it was very nice before.
Car.
I don't know what happened to it.
Thing.
And it wasn't like that before.
You think it's pregnant?
I don't know, or something, but
Let's have a look. Quite a little event, Brain.
I can't believe it, huh? God, we've been working on
Reach
this.
in and grab that box in one of those cell terminals. Let's see if you dance.
Look at me.
Where you
I'm
going?
safe. No,
And we want to keep you that way too, buddy. I don't want anything to happen to you.
No burn. Well, thank you.
You haven't burst into flames. Or
I know,
anything.
no tingling fingers, no burns.
We do not talk about safety very much here, and there's a reason. A couple of reasons, actually. First, it seems like the way to become an authority and gain status in the forums is to preach a safety nonsense from safety Nazis endlessly, and I find it very annoying.
It is annoying.
Since we don't need to be experts and we don't need any status, and we don't even know who it is that watches this.
I know. That's right. Who are you guys?
We don't have to do that.
Right.
So you can assume we're a bunch of unsafe boobalas. Actually, I spent a number of years writing technical documentation for DoD. And one of the things I championed was the Cry Wolf program, which was, let's not put so many warnings in the book, because if you have enough of them, nobody reads any of them.
Nobody will read any of them, yeah.
Do you ever
just
get
put the important ones
get
in.
an appliance, a drill or something, and
Oh, God.
try to find something in the little manual, and the first 12 pages are warnings?
Yeah, actually, I was reading the little contour camera we use. There's 8 pages of warnings.
8 pages of
And
warning,
I don't know how
4
it could hurt
pages
you.
of instructions.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And how could it...
Yeah, 12-page document. That's how it
Did
is.
you read all those warnings?
No, I know.
So, as Winston Churchill said, sir, your document, by its very length, has ably defended itself from ever being read.
That's right. Just too much of a good thing. Huh?
But warnings and safety discussions are appropriate where it might be something you don't know that isn't obvious that you want to call attention to. What have we talked about as far as safety over the years? Well, I like eye protection. On account of you got a piece of aluminum in your eye
got
one
a
day.
little one bounced off me. Yeah. We just got some now ear protection. We got a couple of David Allen earmuffs sent in.
Ear protection
Yeah, we got some
for
ear,
the buffer. Now
some-
that's I'm not going to wear that. I'm sorry.
I'm going to take
And-
them to the shooting range and see how they work. Actually,
Yeah, they might be useful for something else, but he was worried about our buffer grinder.
Oh yeah.
All right, this is when you mix in trivia with important safety information, you
How do you know?
disable the important safety
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, how do you know?
And that's why we don't talk about it a lot. We almost never talk about electrocution because we're kind of focused on heat. If you drop a wrench across these terminals, this battery pack does have enough energy to run your house for
Yes.
12 or 15 hours.
Yeah.
And if you put all that across a screwdriver, it's going to melt the screwdriver.
You can vaporize the screwdriver in a
and
split
you
second.
get burned. So
Yeah.
no watches, no rings
No.
around the batteries.
Nope.
And if we're working in here, a lot of time, Brian's particularly good about this after a couple incidents. We keep some rubber matting and stuff around that you throw in over the top.
throw it
Just
in
throw
over
it
the
on
terminals.
top of the battery.
Yeah.
So if you drop something on them,
It's
you
fine.
don't pick
Yep.
up a couple terminals.
Yeah.
So I seem a little cavalier about safety. Actually, I only want to talk about it when it matters.
Right. Yeah. Not everything. Yeah.
This week, we were just doing some routine maintenance on my daily driver, the 2009 Mini Cooper Clubman. And I asked Brian to pop the tops on the batteries, and I was going to charge it up a little higher than I normally
Right.
charge it. I charge it at about 3.47 volts a cell. I was going to charge it up to the 3.6 and go through and check the cells.
Yeah.
And make sure I didn't have one venting or,
Yeah. It's always good every now and then
change in
check. Yeah.
capacity.
Yep.
They're always telling me without a BMS this is going to happen.
Right. We keep
We
waiting.
check it every 4 or 6 months. It never does.
No.
But it's not a bad check.
Yeah.
And
It's okay. We're here at the shop.
sure,
You know.
got stuff to do. You pulled the lid, and what happened?
Well, I was removing the our Ziva. We were going to relocate it and play with that a little bit, and I got frame ground and a wrench on the negative terminal here at the most negative, and I got the whole pack.
Is that right? Did it bite?
Yeah, it bite. It
That feel
bit.
good?
Oh yeah, it was. My pinky tingled for a couple of days.
So he called my attention to that, and I had to do the same Marine Corps voltage check myself.
He can't help himself. That's right.
It hurts.
It hurts. That's right. It really is.
Now, if you have any question about your pack and frame ground, and let's talk about that. The positive end of our pack is connected, of course, to the controller, the DC converter, and so forth. So is the negative end of the pack.
Right.
In cars, normally you just tie the negative end to the frame.
To the frame on a regular, your
on your 12
SLI
volt
battery
system.
or whatever, yeah.
So you only have one wire.
Right.
We could cut our wiring in half if we do that.
I
wouldn't
know.
we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, you don't want to do it.
No.
And here's why. This car, a lot of our cars are fiberglass, but this one's metal. And if you lean across the metal and touch your battery, and one end of it was tied to the frame, you get 380 volts.
Right, right.
And it hurts.
Yeah, it does.
So our pack is actually, our entire drive system is entirely isolated from frame ground.
From the frame, yeah, it's never tied into the frame. Right.
Now, how you can tell is with an ordinary voltmeter. If we put this on one of our terminals and ground, which would be a good idea before you perform maintenance.
Right before you do it, yeah.
I've got 26 volts. No, wait, I got 18 volts. No, wait, I got 7 volts.
Yeah.
What's wrong with my voltmeter? I got 3 volts. 2 volts.
Where's it going?
Where's it
going? Where's the
There's a
electricity
voltage.
going?
There is no path for current conduction between the battery pack and the frame.
In the frame, yeah.
So we would say that it's floating. And there could be a voltage difference, but it's sort of random and doesn't matter.
Right.
And you're not going to get any current through you because they're not connected.
They're not connected, yeah.
You're reading what's commonly referred to as a ground loop, common mode noise. The difference in potential between the floating battery pack and the grounded frame.
And the grounded frame, yeah.
And that's what it'll look like. If you have a leak to ground, you're going to see a steady voltage that will vary depending on where you're at in the pack.
Where you pick it up.
If this is 124 volts and the next cell's 127 and the next volt's 130 and it stays that way, we have a problem. We have a connection to the frame
To the frame somewhere, yeah.
And therein lies the tale. I have famously, with this car, gotten them over and over with a not very hazardous situation with our instrumentation. If you hook up an ordinary voltmeter, the little LED voltmeter from eBay,
little voltmeter, yeah.
to your pack, it has to have a separate power supply. Typically, you use your 12-volt system, which is tied to the frame.
To the frame, yes.
And so in hooking up this voltmeter and hooking up its power separately to 12 volt, that seems pretty innocent. But it sets up a leak to ground.
Because you're picking up the wire from the pack, so you know the voltage.
Exactly. And
And
so
you grounded it.
internally in the meter, you have tied the two grounds together.
Right.
And you now have a leak. Fortunately, with a voltmeter, there's usually some resistors and so forth. It's limited to about 10 milliamps.
Okay.
So you'll feel a tingle,
But nothing, yeah.
but you're not really bit yet.
Yeah, right. You just wait.
The solution to that particular problem that we've developed over time, this is a little Yaohua Chinese
The old Yaohua.
DC to DC converter.
Right.
This performs the remarkable feat of converting a 12-volt supply to 12 volts.
Yeah.
It actually has a little range on it, puts out a little bit cleaner 12 volt, but in the process it also isolates
Yeah.
between the two 12 volts. The 12 volt input is not tied anyways to the 12 volt output.
To the output.
I think they're $11. They have 4 pins, 12 volt ground in, and 12 volt plus minus out.
There you go. Yeah.
And we stick that between our 12 volt and the voltmeter.
Yeah.
And some voltmeters use a 5 volt supply. You get a 12.5 version. And they're 10 or $11. If I forget, somebody gets a tingle.
Yeah, right.
So that's what I thought was going on. And I grabbed a terminal in the frame, and it was not a tingle. It hurt.
Yeah, it was a bite.
Off we go. And so we have a genuine frame leak. I can't just jump on a meter and say, okay, I forgot another voltmeter or something.
Yeah, no.
We actually have contact somewhere.
Because it was new. We didn't have it before. Yeah.
We did not have it before, and now we have a frame leak. Troubleshooting that can be a little bit of fun. because, of course, everything ultimately is connected to the pack.
Right.
What we did was disconnected the positive end of the pack entirely and took a voltmeter, and what you can do is check the voltage from any particular cell to the frame and move it around. And the closer you get to zero, the closer you're getting to the point of contact.
The point of contact, yeah.
And so we went all through it, and guess where we wound up? At the negative terminal
all the
of
way
the pack.
up, all the way up from the other side, yeah. It was the
Now, I
entire
got the
pack.
positive disconnected,
Yeah.
and it appears to be grounded at the negative terminal. This doesn't make a
Doesn't
lot
make
of
any
sense.
sense, no.
So I'm scratching and carrying on. We have a maintenance switch, we're going to show you here, that we can disconnect the negative terminal from the car. And we found that we could put the meter on any of the cells, get a very steady reading, indicating a substantial reading,
Yes.
125 volts, and we could turn that switch and it would go away. Brian called it counting down, but it went floating.
It was floating, yeah.
So the indication went away. Turn the switch back on,
We got the
and we got it back.
Got the voltage, yeah.
Now you have a reproducible symptom, which is the first step in troubleshooting.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
You
And
have
you
to
can do it over
you
and over
have to
again.
have some. This is why I can't do this mechanical stuff. There's no
No rhyme or reason.
There's no
to
meter on
There's
it.
no meter.
it's looking at stuff. So once I get a meter on it, we're good to go. Now we have a symptom I can introduce at will.
Right.
I turn on the switch, we have a leak to ground.
Yep.
Turn
it
off
off.
the switch.
It's all good.
Let's go to the front of the car and see what we found.
All right.
The switch, the maintenance switch that we use to break our pack, actually goes to a cable that comes up here to our negative terminal block. And from there, we tie in various things to it. So the idea is to isolate which one of these things is causing our frame leak to ground. We found an interesting thing. Whatever we would if we pulled everything off except the cable to the controller, which I didn't think would be any issue, if we connected any one of them back up, we got the leak. And we could tell this. Brian stood at the back and said, okay, we've got, with the switch on, we get the voltage. And no matter what I would hook up, the air compressor controller, the DC to DC converter, instrumentation, anything would cause this leak to ground. I would normally expect for one thing to cause this, not everything. That's not a very good troubleshooting solution. And that left the cable to the controller, so I pulled it. At that point, I could put everything back on and we didn't have a frame leak. So we've isolated the problem to the controller. Now that doesn't make a lot of sense because I drove the car in. So the controller has to be operating. What could this be about? Now I don't know exactly what's inside the controller, but I can take my ohm meter, my little fluke meter, and put it on the ohm scale. I get a 0L or OL, which basically means open, with the leads separated. If I short them, it says, 0.1 ohms. So I put that on the cable to the controller and read to ground, and it read open. Well, that's not a short. Whenever you do this, do both polarities, because there's a lot of semiconductors inside a thing like a controller. And sure enough, I reversed the leads and put the positive or red lead on one of them and the black lead on the other. And I got a very different reading, about 300 ohms. Now, 300 ohms is not a short to ground, But if I have 385 volts and I divide it by 300 ohms, I can do a little over an ampere of current through that. That's not 10 milliamps. In fact, it'll hurt at 385 volts. So we may have found the culprit. I don't know what's in the box. It's a black box to me. So we called Chris Brune with a company that makes this Reinhardt Motion Systems that makes the controller. He's a smart guy. He's a nice guy to talk to. Very helpful. He said, "Well, check your cables to your motor." So we checked, pulled 2 of the 3 cables to the motor, and that was a good pick because they're kind of constrained. I've got a really tight loop on these cables, and so that would be a possibility. I got the same 300 ohms and open to each of those cables. And so we called him back and reported that. He said, "Well, you've either got a short to ground inside the controller, or one of these cables has a short to ground." Now, that's all it can be. Well, this wasn't making too much sense to me. Recall that the Reinhardt Motion Systems controller introduced us to these cables that have a shielding and then a center conductor, and we tie the shielding to a little metal claw that then conducts to the case, and the center conductor, of course, is connected internally, and those shouldn't be shorted ever. We looked at all the cables. This one, our power cable, or positive, is actually connected to a contactor, so it's not connected to anything. But I put a ohmmeter from this one to the case ground, and I didn't even get the 300 ohms. I got a dead short. In every case where that's the situation that I've ever seen, it's real simple. You pull the cable out, and it'll be one of your terminals that you've somehow misdone, and we've given very close attention and care to tying back our shielding, wrapping it in some copper foil, and covering that with heat shrink, and then doing the terminal. But something has to be doing this, and so I pulled it out. Sure enough, the center conductor was shorted to the shield. I chopped both ends off the cable, and they still are shorted to the shield. I've never seen this, but this cable, without any sign of chafing or wear really, has somehow internally shorted between the shield and the conductor. That sounds like someone may have stabbed the cable with a probe trying to measure something. Now, I wouldn't do that, and I don't know who else around here may have, but for some reason, this 8-inch cable shorted to the shield from the center conductor. The shield was tied to ground, and that's where our frame link come from. So that's a very unlikely occurrence, and I'm not too sure how to tell you to troubleshoot something like that other than what I've just walked through. We replaced the cable, the frame leak went away, and now we can work on the batteries. In any event, it is important that you not have a connection to ground. Ryan Bohm with Net Gain Controls actually built something into our controller that we use with the Cobra to detect frame leaks. And I thought that was a little strange, but I like the idea. I wish all the cars had it now. But it's easy enough to check with a voltmeter. We're just going to make it standard practice to check when we pop a lid before we touch the batteries. We're just going to have to read for a frame leak. This is a freak situation. I can't imagine it ever coming up again, but we are going to keep an eye out on these shielded cables that we've started to use, because that's sure enough what was the problem in this case. The problem is solved, but I wanted to share both the danger of frame leaks, particularly when they're beyond the 10 milliamps through a voltmeter. An ampere at 385 volts is 385 watts, and that'll light your light bulb if you get across it. It did Brian's, and it did mine. And our thanks, of course, to Chris Bruni, Chris Brune, who again offered very sage advice on this topic and got us to the problem. In 10 minutes after talking to him, we knew it was the cable. Making another cable was not a problem, and we got it back in there, and we're operating fine at this point. So that's where we're at on the Mini Cooper. We'll check the voltages later.
NetGain Controls introduces the new Warp Drive Industrial Controller. The Industrial is designed to handle a maximum of 1400 amps and up to a 360 volt nominal battery pack. The unit's rugged design looks and works great in the automotive environment while protecting it from the elements. In addition to higher continuous currents than the classic Warp Drive controller, the Industrial comes with several major enhancements. Liquid cooling is available and uses leak-free and rugged AN fittings. The Industrial controller has complete isolation on both throttle channels, giving the highest possible immunity from situations that might affect the electrical throttle input. High voltage connections are fully protected underneath the sealed cover. Voltage leaks between vehicle chassis and a battery pack are detected, alerting the user to potential safety problems. Controller settings can be completely customized using the NetGain Controls interface module, which can also log data to an onboard SD card. The controller weighs in at 25 pounds. Visit www.ngcontrols.com to order your Warp Drive Industrial Controller now.
Well, I'm feeling much better now.
Myth busted.
Myth busted, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We got to the bottom of it, but that sort of thing can nag you, and we just a lot of times don't know the answer.
No.
But this one we had to find out.
Yeah,
if we had to pull all the cables out of the car.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, we can't do
you
that.
You have to track it down.
Yeah, we could have. Every little wire might have to come out of that car.
An 8-inch piece of 1-aught.
Yeah, just the
shielded cable. It's not a foot long.
No, and no visible sign. It's not the type of thing on inspection.
Both ends
that you would
looked
see.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I was sure when we pulled that out of the controller that I'd found that somehow when I put it in, I mangled it.
It was beautiful.
And it just, we got away with it for a while, and then it, just vibrations.
Yeah.
We pulled it out, it looked gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was.
That was a cable they sent us originally.
Yeah.
They'd done the end of it. And it looked great.
Yeah.
Well, it was shorted, dead short.
Yeah.
Zero
Something
ohms
happened. Yeah, something happened.
The center conductor to the shield, and the shield was intentionally connected to the case of the
case, yeah.
controller, which is, we are quite deliberate in tying that to the frame ground.
Right. Yep.
And so we had a perfect storm there.
Yeah,
but,
we did.
Criminy, we're used to it. We've been bit by the Mini Cooper before. It's always been the instrumentation issues.
Yeah.
And they're little 10 milliamp leaks or 20 milliamp leaks. You couldn't get have enough resistance in it that you could get any current through it.
No, you just get a little.
We could get
tingle.
an amp through this at 380 volts, or it was probably 365.
360 something, yeah.
Sitting there, and
that was pretty good. Yeah, that'll wake you up.
It'll get your attention.
It did too. It was like we had to stop everything, and it was like, all right, let's do it.
Again, you do not want any electrical or mechanical connection to metal parts of your car from your battery pack ever.
No.
And I've seen some builds where they had the racks and stuff right next to the terminals, a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch away.
And that's just too close for comfort.
That is not good.
No, it's not good engineering.
It's death defying.
Yeah. Yeah, he was waiting for something to happen.
and cars move, shake, rattle, and bake, and you can we tend to put ours in boxes. Now the distance from the terminal to the wall of the box may not look like much, but it's a half an inch.
It's a lot. Yeah, in that terms, yeah.
And then we build the top up an inch and a half above them and put a top on top,
Right.
kind of screwed down, and it pretty much keeps things from
Keep things from rattling around, jumping around. Yeah.
making any connection.
Yeah.
These guys using the angle iron on the edge of the battery cell. If
Yeah.
you see a car with that done, with an angle iron running along the top edge of one of these prismatic cells, get away from the car and don't talk to the guy that's doing it.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
They learned to do this with the lead acid cells, and some of them haven't let loose.
Yeah.
And it will not work with these.
No, it's just
you're
too much,
looking
yeah.
for bad news
Yeah,
there.
you're looking for trouble. Asking for trouble.
You get away with it as long as that 1/8 or 3/16 is maintained, but
That's a lot to ask in a vehicle.
you bet.
I mean, I went around the other day, yesterday afternoon under the Cobra, because we've been driving it now and doing things just to retorque bolts.
Mm-hmm.
And there were probably 10, 12 bolts that I had to, they were seriously loose. Not on batteries, just stuff that we had bolted to the car that was plenty tight a couple of weeks ago before we, started driving the car hard.
Yep.
And,
And we've gotten where we use those Nordlock washers on most of even the mechanical bolts. And it's still an issue. You miss stuff and it shakes, rattles, and bakes and goes down the road
that's
that
it.
way. You
Yep.
know. So maybe a short show this week. We've done the Mini Cooper. Oh, wait a minute.
we got the stuff we did at the airport.
Wait a minute. Didn't we go?
Thing.
Hold everything.
Always wanted to say that.
George Hamstra
He's the instigator.
that provided the 11 HV for this project. And his one request was that we put in a line locker, and
which we did.
so we could demonstrate how his motor makes the tires smoke. Now, this is with the wide tires,
Yes.
and were you able to get any smoke out of these?
Yeah, I was able to smoke them. We should probably show them what
Yeah,
the heck
let's
happened.
put that up. That's what they wanted to see. Woo! You are a NASCAR, baby. That stinks. feel for it.
Doors are flying off. I'll try it again.
It's pretty smelly.
Huh?
Pretty smelly.
It's pretty smelly, yeah. Whew. Yeah, I tried undoing the line lock. I couldn't.
I think you're getting the hang of it.
NASCAR victory lap.
Yeah, I think you're getting the hang of it. Do it again, Daddy.
Man, when it hooks up and it starts, when it hooks up and it starts pointing toward the hanger, it's like, oh shit.
Your door's open.
flying over. I'll try it again. Huh? It's pretty smelly, yeah. Woo! Yeah, I tried undoing the line lock. I couldn't, it wouldn't do anything else.
I do a NASCAR victory lap? And when it hooks up and it starts, when it hooks up and it starts pointing toward a hanger, it's like, oh shit. I'll go out here a little more. I'm gonna go closer here.
Gain Motors, home of the Warp, Transwarp, and Impulse motors, introduced the improved Warp 9 motor. The Warp 9 is a 9 1/4 diameter series wound DC motor with a double-ended shaft featuring 26 improvements for 2010. Externally, the terminal studs have been enlarged from 3/8 to 1/2 inch diameter. Bigger is better. On the inside, a larger commutator, new brush composition, and split brush design with heavier springs handle even higher voltages and currents than before. Our new fan increases airflow by almost 50% over typical paddle-style fans, and all this translates into improved performance. For even more performance or larger applications, take a look at NetGain's Warp 11 motor, an 11 3/4 diameter series wound DC motor for even greater torque and power. Since 2002, NetGain Motors has been leading the EV industry with precision, performance, and price. Visit us at go-ev.com. NetGain Motors, warp power to go.
Well, there you go.
So you kind of had to stop the car because
running down.
you couldn't see where you were going.
Well, there was that, it combined with the fact that I wasn't quite sure if anything was on fire.
Right. It looked like the car was on
It
fire.
did look like it was on fire.
It was still smoking a minute after you stopped.
I know, and that was what I was. Not knowing where I was not as bad because I hit something and stop, as I thought maybe I lit the
Might
car
be
on fire.
enveloped in flames.
Yes.
Did that put you off?
Yeah, it was like I got to get away from it and look at it for a second. But oops.
Well, it should be no problem getting out of the car whenever you go in a circle. The doors
And
fly
the
open.
doors fly open when you go in circles, and the thing made a little tiny donut. I got down to a NASCAR donut there. We were.
Victory lap. Huh?
Yep, we worked it until I was good at it.
Well, I still think you need to practice.
I need
on
some more
that.
practice. There you go.
What do we do on our 0 to 60 in quarter mile? Let's take a look at some of that.
Okay.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Brian.
and 360 feet.
6.77360.
Yeah,
That's better.
that's better.
Why don't you run it up to about 3,000 and dump the clutch, see what happens.
All right. Second or first? Second?
Second.
.702 at 387.8 feet. So we
Got a little scratch there.
went the wrong way, dumping the clutch. We're slower, 7.02. Yeah. 387.83. That was the second gear that dumping the clutch was really hard. Well, we ran down basically the same track. We didn't set up the track as the airport, as we had at the show, the drag race. I
gotta tell you, I'm not happy about it.
yeah, we need
Well-
to get some more speed out of that car.
Well,
I think we've got it.
I'm not. I drove it down the lane, and it's very quick.
Yeah,
You were using that speedometer
We-
0 to 60 thing. He's got a device he's used to using.
Yeah,
but
the
you have to
G-Tech.
plug it into a cigarette
we
lighter.
got down there,
We don't
forgot
have a
we didn't have
cigarette
a
lighter,
Persian.
you know,
Yep, in the Cobra. Yeah,
in
there's a
the
cigarette lighter.
Cobra. Let's get that wired up.
Yeah, we'll wire it up. That's all we got to do is put hot
And,
and ground.
and
yeah.
let's do it one day when it's not raining.
Yes.
And
Yeah, and see, because no, I'm not confident because I'm not completely confident in the instrument. Let's get another instrument. And if we
The,
have to, we can set up our quarter mile, our porter tree if we have to, and just run drag strip down there.
I guess we can do that.
And we do have a drag strip.
Have we got all the stuff to set that up?
Oh yeah,
We might just do that.
yeah. I mean, we could do a drag. We need a few guys, but we could do it.
All right.
So we can run it with the G-Tech with our drag strip in a box and see what we get.
I'll tell you what I'd like to do. I'm going to send our data files off to Ryan and George,
Oh, okay.
see what kind of currents and voltages we were doing, see if you were really stepping on it
Okay. Okay.
or not. And next week, I'd like to go to Sling Blade with cameras, clamp on meters, voltmeters, the whole thing, and do a full metal jacket dynamometer on that.
Okay.
And I'm going to invite George, if you can set up kind of an official appointment, we'll probably Wednesday.
Okay.
We'll go down and see what's really shaking,
What we got? All right. Sounds good.
and that'll get us some more information. Next week we're going to introduce a new project. It's not going to be a very long one or a very tall one.
No.
and when we're going to do it kind of concurrently with the Escalade, but I think we're going to do it. And that'll be kind of interesting, so stay tuned for that. Kind of a historic car. It's caught
It should
my
be
eye.
fun. Yeah, it should be fun.
And but for now, that's about what I've got.
Me too. I'm clear.
Do you know anything more to do about electric vehicles this week?
We can't tell them everything in 1 week. Or what do we do next week?
Well, I'm Jack Rickard.
And I'm Brian Noto.
We'll see you all next week and find out.